It's been about a week since Bob dropped in early access for version 3.02 of Tekken 8. The second DLC character of the year. The third one will be Roger the Kangaroo. The fourth one will be Yujiro from Baki. But in the meantime, we have Bob, and I have a lot of thoughts about the character. It's important for me to give an early disclaimer that when I am citing other characters as examples, when I'm expressing distaste for a character's playstyle, that's never really an attack on the player that's playing them, right? Fighting games all across the board have frustrating characters to deal with, and that's kind of the point. We all start at the same place in character select, so pick the characters you like, regardless of the opinions I express on them. That said, I want to talk about Bob from a design standpoint, the things I think that went really well with this character, and the things that I think were weaker or maybe repeating mistakes, not just in Tekken 8, but mistakes with DLC characters even back to Tekken 7. This Bob patch also has a lot of buggy behavior outside of this character, and I want to talk about that in a separate video. But for now, I just want to focus on this character and what I think they set out to do, what I think they accomplished, and where I think they dropped the ball. The first thing I think that's pretty good is that Bob's playstyle is pretty faithfully recreated from previous Tekken games. He has a lot of the same flow, a lot of his moves are the same. There's been some small changes, like this move used to be up forward 1+2, now it's mapped to a throw. So they did some remappings and some readjustments to some of his moves. The frame data is a bit different, but the character is still a really sticky poke character, very aggressive. He has a lot of string extensions that can like make you hesitate. They're punishable, of course, but he's going to be beating you up. He's going to be wave dashing in your face. He's going to be mixing you up, and he's going to be counter hit launching you with DF2, among other things. This character is pretty fast, pretty aggressive, and I think he appeals to a lot of different playstyles. You have your really high tempo players like Ulsan, and you also have people who aren't afraid to take risks, like Rook Hang in the UK, who is famous for playing Bob and hell sweeping the entire round, right? Some people just aren't afraid to play this character in a high risk, high reward manner, and I think that's something that's cool about him, is there's a lot of ways you can choose to play Bob. I think the fact that they recreated this style is a cool thing, honestly. We saw early in Tekken 8's lifespan characters like Eddie, Lydia, Heihachi, Jack 8. I'm putting Steve in there because it's turned out that he's a bit more of a different character, even though it's not as extreme as the other reworks. So I'll put him later if we're being honest. But characters in this game have had brand new visions assigned to them, or big adjustments to their design. I think it's been not universally well received. Obviously, people still like their characters, and people like John Ding still play Eddie and are really strong in their characters. But overall, we've seen a lot of identity shifts. And I think it's cool that characters like Bob and Fahk and AK, even though I'm not a fan of these characters in terms of fighting against them, I think it's cool that they've kept their identity from previous games, but have had some updates going into Tekken 8. In fact, most of my issue with these characters is in their Tekken 8ification, or the updates they've had that kind of cover up their weaknesses or make them really oppressive in kind of annoying ways for people looking to play with consistency. Other things about Bob I like, his movement feels fantastic. He has a really, really good backdash. It's really smooth to cancel. It's fun to move fast with him. His wave dash is the same as before. And his sidesteps are actually really good. Bob is one of the few characters that can sidestep the other Bob's DF4-4, right? So this is the heat engager, and I can step the second hit to the right. If you try this with any other character outside of a specific small list, I'll put it in the description because we're still testing, but this will clip a lot of sidesteps. Bob just happens, despite his size, to have a really nimble hurtbox in some situations. Basically, he has really strong mail movement while also having some DLC privilege. His single backdash also tends to be pretty good. While he's kept a lot of his identity, he's gained some ridiculous moves like back 3+4. I think this move is ridiculous, and even at the top level, you're seeing players just kind of throwing this out because it's such an overloaded move, right? It jumps over lows, it's safe on block, it covers like half the screen. It is a hilarious move, and along the lines of some people playing Bob like a poking character, like think like, you know, a Dragonov or other offensive poking character, there are also people who will be playing this character like a crackhead, doing a bunch of the ridiculous moves, hell sweeping over and over, hitting a Shoryuken into the unblockable for a combo. You can meme on this character a lot too. And this is probably a good sample for, I think, how I feel about the character overall. Because while he does have his usual jab, his great pokes, his good strings, he also has the Tekken 8 G-Clef, the 10-hit counter hit confirmable heat engaging string, and also has some, you know, neutral skip moves like this. The move is, you know, technically linear, but it happens so fast and it's supplemented by so many other moves that, you know, I don't think it's quite as simple as simply sidestepping this. Of course, he can wave dash at you and mix you up from a distance as well. If I had to summarize this character compared to his previous iterations, Bob experts have talked to me about him feeling closer to Tekken 6 Bob. Obviously, with a few exceptions, his down one is not as good as it used to be, but he has less universal coverage. We're gonna see more of this as I get into more details about the character, but yeah, in general, he has less universal coverage, but higher reward in a lot more situations when he's correct. First thing I want to touch on is some design choices that I think are probably good from the standpoint of dealing with the frustrating parts of Bob as both newer players and experienced players. Is a lot of his previously safe strings were made more unsafe. So Bob has a really obnoxious string that I think is kind of an onboarding thing. When you fight against Bob and the player knows what they're doing, you're going to deal with back 2-2, back 2-2-4, and back 2-2-4-4. As you can see, the string is mid-high, mid-high. So you have to be fast enough to duck and launch the second hit if he does it. So some Bobs will just poke with the back 2 to get you to fuzzy duck, and while you're hesitating, they can hit you with a different move as soon as you're finished with that. If you try to interrupt, he can do the second hit, and if you're too slow, he can do the third hit. Now, they made this third hit minus 13, and that's kind of the big change to this string, is it's made more punishable. And this is kind of a pattern with the rest of his strings. He has down 2-1, which has 2 extensions, so 4 hits total. And Bob players will often poke you with these strings, either threatening the extensions if you try to interact, or use it so you hesitate so they can mix you up after. Other big nerf that I think is going to be nicer for a lot of players getting into the game is down 1 is only minus 8, so it pretty much gives up Bob's turn. It still has the counter hit property, so he can get a free crouch cancel steel pedal after. But yeah, this move is not as oppressive as it used to be. I know a lot of people who talk about Tekken 6 will see Bob doing this move all the time. And then there are also strings where they've kept their reward, but are more punishable. So I'm thinking of down 4-3-4 specifically. 3-hit string, if the first one counter hits, the whole string goes off and it wall splats, right? So this type of string is a really good call out if you think your opponent's going to press. Wall splat into the wall for a full combo. And then the other big change that I think is healthy is that forward 2, the tracking has been way nerfed. This move used to be pretty hard to get around. Still steppable for sure. But even with wave dash realignment here, I'm going to set the Bob bot to do it to me. Right, it tracks step left, but I have to step on a bit of a delay because of the first wave dash. So if I step right like that, I can get around it after the first wave dash. Overall, forward 2 in this game plays into that theme I was talking about, where Bob has less universal coverage than before, but higher reward. Even though there's less tracking, it's now a full heat dash launcher for a combo, right? So this move is still strong, but in different ways. It's not anymore the move that you'll just throw out kind of from this range, and it'll have a lot of presence and a lot of, you know, space on the screen. It's easier to move around, but if you do hit it, it's really catastrophic for the defender. Historically, I've been pretty bad against this character just because of, again, how sticky he is with the jab strings, his down forward 1 extensions. Speaking of down forward 1 extensions, one of the changes I want to note is down forward 1, down 1, guaranteeing a 13 frame heat engage string. And to round out the other good changes that I'm a fan of, his stance guessing situations are not really that oppressive overall. A lot of the Bob roll situations, that's his main stance, is spinner ball here. And a lot of these situations are mitigatable by sidestep left block or generic down 4 if your character has it. So when a Bob is rolling at you, sidestep left covers a lot of the options here. One of the more annoying ones is roll 3 here, which is actually a plus on block move, but again, it's still avoidable with this sidestep left block. Oh, yeah, look at that. Now, the exception, of course, is Bob can get into stance with huge frame advantage, plus 12 off of this string, for example. And that's when you do have to guess. Same with this, down forward 4-3. This is more of a combo tool where you'll see the roll, but it will happen here if you get string mixed. I guess both of these are 13 frames too, so he could go for a punish into roll for like a bit of casino. The other situation where you have to guess is after a combo, and this is not going to be a good combo. Like here, you can spike him into the ground and then roll. And then this is another forced guest situation. So situationally, he can create a casino, but it's not a big focus of his character. And I think that's cool. I think that's generally a move in the right direction for stance-based offense in Tekken 8. And then another huge change to this character that makes him more bullyable is that down forward 2 isn't a true high crush or jab crush. So for example, Dragunov and Bob are pretty good at checking this character for trying to evade you with the DF2, right? There are some characters where the down forward 2 will go under and counter hit launch, but Bob specifically and other strong jab characters can still beat up Bob with jabs, right? He's not going to get out of jail for free with this DF2, whereas historically in the past he could. That ends up being kind of a big deal, and it does balance out the scales a bit when you consider the fact that, you know, moves like forward 2 are now full heat dash launchers. Right, so there's some things that have been nerfed, and in compensation, other things have been buffed, and probably vice versa. They probably knew some things would be stronger and made adjustments to try and prevent the frustration points of, you know, a stronger Bob overall. We'll do a deep dive into Bob's Tekken-ification in a bit, but I want to show you some tweets that came out as the character's been getting a bit more explored. Here is a insane punish from his Heat 12-frame punish. So it is context-specific to being in Heat and being on a floor break stage. But it's 53 damage right after the hazard activation, right? And then it's a pretty standard combo from what I understand. Heat dash, wall carry, and then rage art. So it's situational. However, 53 damage before the combo even really starts is pretty wild for a 12-frame punish. And because the HP is now at 190 versus the 200 during the majority of Season 2, this is a pretty devastating combo to eat. Again, it is situational. He's at 1 health and rage. He has to use all of his resources. But still, coming out of a 12-frame punish is wild. And it's on, you know, a floor break stage. Other cool things about Bob is he actually is one of the few characters that can full launch King Slide using up forward 3+4. So that's pretty nice because most characters just have to hit King on the ground once. But Bob actually can convert into a combo. So that's a cool little proof of concept there. There is some jank with his hurt boxes. Here's a string that Reina can power crush in between, but it gives Bob a back turn combo on the character. Despite the weight portion of his speed and weight, you know, tagline, he's also quite petite. And for some reason, a lot of things will just slip by him, right? Outside of just his strong movement in general, he has some of these weird hurtbox situations. And some combos that are standard, like work on standard characters, don't work on Bob. So that's something to keep in mind when you fight him. Your combos might drop. Here's a bug that kind of returns from the Tekken 7 era, where sometimes the idle animation of a character will just dodge a move. Now, in this case, I don't think it's problematic because you're not going to stand still for that long. And he does lift his foot up. So I don't think this is a gameplay issue at all, actually. It's just, it's cool that, you know, Tekken puts this level of detail into hurt boxes. It's very unlikely somebody's not holding back for this long to get that evasion. But, you know, that's pretty funny. And then here's some more jank. I have no idea what happened here. This is from Trunkies, another content creator. Yeah. I don't know what the input is for this, but Bob just does that. There's been no announcement of an adjustment patch or anything like that, so I'm sure they're gathering a lot of this information, but that is... I don't even know what to think about that. And then Breadman tweeted, ha ha ha, 2 days after Bob came out. He does dig in, it gets behind Leroy, and then he dies to the armor move. So yeah, there's a lot of jank with this character right now. Obviously, it's a new DLC release, and we would like if this weren't the case, particularly with, you know, things like this hurtbox interaction too. But this has been the case for characters coming out even in Tekken 7. So hopefully they fix it soon. A lot of the problems I have with Bob come from the general Tekken 8ification that has happened to a lot of characters, as well as, I think, the repetition of some mistakes when they were making Tekken 7 DLC, where they were covering up weaknesses and kind of giving him new tools that the original design of Bob didn't have for a reason, right? So to me, it's kind of crazy that they're adding these things. To get started, there's the usual string coverage, or like the addition of new string extensions that makes it really obnoxious to try to develop a consistent defensive plan against the character. So as a quick example, Bob has 4-3, which is a counter hit launcher, right? So if I key charge here, it puts me in the air for a combo. I don't know the conversion. But To complement that, if you were going to try to duck this string, he has 4-4. And the way this string works is it has a natural delay. So if I try to flash duck and punish, that's fine. But I will get hit by this. So I have to decide which one I'm going to cover and immediately go for that punish. Right? I'll be able to launch that. But if I flash duck and he does the mid option, now he's +2. He has advantage on block. So I think from a high level standpoint, this string probably isn't worth interacting with. You kind of just let Bob do it and just play the game after. But I think it's a bit annoying that they don't want consistent defensive game plans. As you can see, you can step right against the big mid extension. But if you try to step right, the second high hits you. So the string, the multiple options cover each other. And you kind of have to guess between them. The other thing that really bothers me is this back 2-2 string was admittedly pretty annoying. But at high level, people would be ready to duck the third hit and launch it. Right? So after you've played against Bob enough and practiced, you could get really consistent at that. Because this animation is pretty unique. So you can be prepared for this. And that's kind of a nice little point of development. It's a nice, satisfying feeling to get good at ducking these strings and getting your punish. But in Tekken 8, they've added mid extensions. So now he has back 2-1, which is the same starter, but a mid extension. So if you duck, it's going to hit you. And if that weren't enough, this is the same string I talked about earlier that goes into stance. So if you are ducking this to try and launch the high, he's in stance at +12, and you have to guess. So this is a bit of a Tekken 8-ified situation that I really dislike. To be fair, this isn't unique to Bob. This has happened across the cast. It's just a design decision I don't particularly agree with. The other Tekken 8-ified thing is they've really souped up his punishment. To the credit of the dev team, though, and I do think that if they're going to go with string mix-ups, this is the way to implement it. This option is fuzzyable. There's a 5-frame difference between the high and the mid. So you can input a quick crouch and let go, and still block both options. And the second one is punishable, 13 frames, right? So I think that's actually not the worst thing, but it is going to blow up a lot of newer players. So it makes this type of offense very legitimate for beginners and intermediates, but less good against the top level of players, which is the right way to go about these types of changes, in my opinion. I think that if you can create a game that's appealing to the newer players while still having a lot of skill expression at the top level, I believe that's optimal. So making it fuzzyable is pretty good in my book. Although I think realistically in tournament settings, when Bob is representing all of his move list, I'm not sure how consistent most players will be at fuzzying this outside of like the top 5 players in the world. I could be wrong though. Again, early impressions, first week. The other Tekken 8ification I don't really agree with is giving him new punishes. For a character like Bob, who has a lot of tools, wave dash, like, you know, a budget electric, a real hell sweep mix-up, and then a lot of pokes on top of that, to me, it makes sense for him to have well-placed weaknesses. And in particular, it was a historical gap in his punishment. He had a while standing 4 for 11 frame lows, or -11 lows, and then he had a 14 frame launcher with while standing 2-1, which is a really big asset. But it created this gap in the -12 to -13 range where he wouldn't get a really strong punish. But now, as of Tekken 8, this while standing 1-2 gives him a wall splatting, heat engaging option there. I feel like for a character who had a lot of strong traits, they've covered up some of the weaknesses or filled in some of the holes there, which were there for a reason based on the legacy design. To their credit, once again, they did take away the 15 frame launcher that Bob got in late Tekken 7 in Season 4. They took that away, which shows that they're aware, I think, or cautious of giving too many extra strengths to a character. But they've also given a slight compensation buff, where CD1, or Crouch Dash 1, now has a perfect input for a 15-frame launch. And while it does require some execution to do, it's important to remember, as I've talked about recently, that there are different input methods that can make this easier. I'll switch to the hand cam here so you can see. These are directional buttons, and I can hit forward, down, forward 1 to get this input perfectly. So when Bob does a -15 move on my block, I should be able to punish it. All right. There we go. It took about like 8 tries, but a better player who's maining Bob specifically and maybe has controllers that can be mapped to make this easier now have a huge advantage. So I think it's partially on the right track. I think that it's a good thing that they at least gated this type of power behind some kind of execution, and realistically, in most matches, this isn't going to be an issue. But we've seen it happen. We've seen it start to happen already. So I don't know how long it's going to be the case that, you know, this punish is locked away behind execution. And then a few other changes that are personally a lot to me. Giving him a full crouch low that's plus on hit feels a little crazy, especially coming out of heat engagers. Means he can apply a quick little mix-up here. And on counter hit, it gives a knockdown. So he gets a free follow-up. I don't think he needed this. I believe it's to complement this full crouch mid string. But yeah, it's a bit surprising to me that they gave this to him. It's not the most egregious thing, but when you combine it with a lot of these other tools, it just seems strange. Perhaps the most egregious one, though, is the 10-frame counter hit string, or commonly known as a G-clef. This comes from the term G-clef cannon from previous Tekken characters. 1-2-2 is pretty confirmable because in Tekken 8, when you hit a counter hit, there's a big pink spark there. So you can hit the 1-2, see that spark, and then hit the last two. Wall splatting heat engage, Dragunov has it, Law has it, Lars has it, and now Bob has it. This type of tool is just so strong in the current meta of Tekken 8, where characters are really aggressive and interactive. Bob is already pressuring you in a lot of ways. Down back 3 is a low that's +2, so if you try to challenge after, 1-2-2 is a real threat. Bob having this as a new tool is not super surprising, I guess. But it is definitely not the type of change I think people were looking forward to. My hunch, after seeing Dragunov do so well at the Esports World Cup and how people responded to that, generally not happy seeing Dragunov over and over again, I bet this change has been in the pipeline for probably at least a year now. In the drafts of Bob, they probably intended to have this. And they're not able to quickly enough adjust the character's design to adapt to the pushback towards Dragunov and, you know, 10-frame counter hit, wall splatting, heat engaging strings before Bob's release. I have a sneaking suspicion that maybe these will get looked at in Season 4 based on the amount of complaints, but this is a real strong asset to have in Tekken 8. I think it's meta-defining, to be honest. Once again, to the credit of the devs, though, this is not as easy to counter hit confirm as it is for Dragunov and Lars and Law, right? It is a bit faster, and more often than not in a practical match, you're going to be confirming it if the opponent's character is already in the middle of an animation. So if I have the opposing Bob swinging, it's more likely I'll react to that twitch from the Bob and confirm off of that. By the time you try to confirm off the spark, it'll probably be a bit late. The two other things that really stood out to me, I think, in terms of changes that make the character and the experience more streamlined in ways that I don't necessarily agree with, are the new wall ender and then his new parry and throw. So let's do the wall ender. This wall ender exists for a couple reasons. For one, if you miscalculate the number of wall hits like this, then his wall ender won't work, right? You get 3 wall hits before they slump off the wall really quickly. So this helps kind of automatically cover that by working for both 3 and 2 wall hits and doing a ton of damage. But what's fascinating is it also kind of works in the open, which is unconventional. Lars only works at the wall. But if you get the spike in the open here, it turns into a full combo ender. So this is more of a benefit, I think, to, again, the newer Bob players. But I think that calculating wall hits and being ready for that is a nice little skill curve for people developing proficiency at the game. And it creates more chances for counterplay if the opponent has to be ready for the opponent to drop their wall combo. Giving characters more consistent ways to always land their combo does, I think, make the whole combo length debate even more frustrating for the people against long combo length, the defenders who are often in the combo. Again, little silver lining, toe kick covers a lot of follow-up offense here, right? So it's not guaranteed, of course. You can sidewalk left if you're the attacking Bob and get around it and then punish him again. But Bob doesn't get really strong Okazemi to set up for or follow-up offense based on this ender. So there is a trade-off if you want to go for that versus the standard ender. But the last change that I think is a little wild is that Bob now has a punch parry. It is funny looking, which I do like. He just flexes his belly. So punch parry. And there's a just frame associated with it. If you hit the kick button, it turns into a wall splat right as the kick connects. So on one hand, I like rewarding execution, and Bob has the same thing with his heat smash. If you heat smash, you hit the buttons in sync with the attacks, and he gets more damage. but it's a wall splatting parry, right? So it gets to a point where, yes, it's cool design, but isn't the reward a little high to get a wall splatting parry? He gets the same thing off of his crouch throw too. And as of release, I don't know if it's just a little hand trick or if it's an actual bug, but it seems that plinking 3-4 makes this more consistent, right? So if you hit 3 and then 3+4 quickly, it seems to give you more chances to hit the just frame. I haven't confirmed this, but it seems to be the case. And then lastly, we can't finish talking about Bob without talking about his heat moves. The heat moves feel really strong. This is all natural, and it covers sidestep to the right. This is all natural, leading to a wall splat for a full combo. Up forward 1-2-2. And this is just so strong. Like, his ability to throw it out, confirm it, it's safe on the first 2 hits. Pretty wild heat move to have. He also has this new punish when he's in heat. Forward 2, 1+2, which breaks the floor, and it's block confirmable. So if your opponent's blocking, you can just stop there, and it's safe on block. That's a really, really powerful heat move. And then he has down forward 3+4, which goes into ball stance. It's only +7, so it's steppable there. But where it's good is that it's a counter hit launcher. So Bob's heat state is really, really strong. He also has a pretty fast heat smash. He has a 16 frame mid heat smash, so it complements his mix-up game and poking game pretty well. And then his last heat move is ball 1-4. Breaks the floor, and on block is +4. He's got really, really good heat moves, and I think kind of like Kunimitsu, the balance around his heat moves is closer to pre 3.0 design. Like, he doesn't spend very much meter doing his full heat strings. He gets multiple uses of them. Whereas a lot of the adjustments post Season 3's launch give the characters just one heat usage, right? So he seems to have the pre 3.0 balancing around his heat gauge. But yeah, in general, I like that they kept Bob's similar style from before. Still a poking menace, still has an insanely good jab. Still will beat you up and stick to you. He has pokes that intentionally track the different directions. So a player who's really locked in on like fundamental Tekken is going to really understand how to beat you up for stepping the wrong way, stepping at the wrong time, attacking at the wrong time, and then abuse you when you're hesitating. Which I think is going to be cool for tournament play, right? People like Ulsan, people like Atif. Not that those are the only, you know, technical Tekken players, but we'll see them use a character like this pretty well. One little hint that Arslan Ash might pick up this character, and again, there's no confirmation here, but Arslan Ash did tweet before I made this video, still early, but after playing against Bob a lot, he looks mid-tier to me right now. So that tells me that he might be looking at picking up this character. If he didn't want to play this character, he probably would have tweeted differently. That's just my little headcanon theory. Again, big Arslan Ash fan, but I know how he moves on Twitter. But yeah, aside from that solid gameplay we'll probably see from these players trying to build consistent win records in tournaments, I think online fighting Bob is going to be a monstrosity. He's going to be digging in from long range. I actually will have my editor put up footage of me spamming ranked and literally just doing this move, and then when they block, hell sweeping, right? And yeah, you can sidestep it. He has like while standing 3. He has wave dash mix-ups to deal with that. It's not the end of the world. So this character is pretty funny, pretty goofy. And I think it's cool that a lot of Tekken players who felt like they haven't had a main, especially coming from older Tekkens, have a character now that has been souped up, updated to match Tekken 8, and still captures the energy of the character from before. Again, a lot of gripes I have with the specifics of the design, not really from a balance perspective, but from just how a character can be played against consistently perspective. Bob has a lot of like ways to just put both players' lives on the line. That's personally going to be frustrating to fight against, but I think it's going to be fun for the Bob players at all levels, especially if they can come out winning in those casino interactions. Anyways, that's all I have on Bob. Our opinions will be more refined as we see him in tournaments. Till then, leave a like and comment if you enjoyed this. Subscribe for more, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.